recently made a statement in a video. In fact, last night I made the video that I think offended some people. I think the reason for the offense is because of a misunderstanding. I I think that a light is more visible in a dark room than it is in a light room. What I'm saying by that is our Christianity, our ministry is more apparent and possibly more, well, not possibly about it, more useful in a dark environment, where sin abounds and people are anti-Christian and such. I think the reason for the misunderstanding is people are thinking that I am for bringing sin into the church, okay? Therefore, a church, or sin can abound in the church, and that's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying when I'm saying light is more visible in a dark environment, I'm not at all indicating that I believe that we should make our churches dark environments. What I'm talking about is the difference between, well, not the difference. I'm saying that I used to have a friend who worked at Lifeway, okay, and it was a great Christian environment, and it was wonderful for him, and it was encouraging. He loved his job, okay. I'm saying that his ministry in that environment was not very visible, okay. I used to be over the hospital ministry at our church for about 6 years. And I went to visit a man who was in the process of dying for about 6 months. He had stomach cancer, and he eventually succumbed to that, and then that was that. Okay, but while I was visiting him, I visited for the entire 6 months. At first, a couple of times a month, and toward the end, frequently throughout the week. Okay. Now, what happened was, what the situation was, is that his family there were no Christians there. Okay, his mother was there, his friends were there, and they were not Christians. And I believe that his mother was Christian, but in that environment, it was difficult for her. Okay, but it was not difficult for me. Okay, my ministry was apparent in that environment, to the point where I was in the hallway one day, and I heard them cussing. They were loud, okay, and then when I walked in, they said, shh, here's the preacher, and his mom was on the phone, and she literally said, well, I got to go, Mama. She was talking to her mother, apparently. She goes, I got to go. The preacher's here, It made a big difference, okay, and it was uncomfortable, for me, but I continued to minister for this family, and toward the end, about 2 weeks before the end, a week and a half, 2 weeks before the end, I came in one night, and I understand how it is. I was tired of the preacher and the jokes and the cussing and the foul language, and I was tired of it. Okay, and I went in one night. Okay, and I literally went in right before visiting hours were over. Okay, and what I said, I was checking to see how you're doing. I'm not here to bother you. I want you to rest. And he was different. Okay, my ministry had made a difference. I was bringing Christ into the room. I spent the next 3 hours with him. The hospital never kicks out a man with a Bible. Okay, or probably a woman with a Bible, I would say as well. I want to make that distinction. Don't want to make that distinction. Make that. Anyway, I had a Bible, and they didn't kick me out. Visiting hours were over at 9 o'clock, and they let me stay till midnight. Okay, witnessing to him. What he noticed during the 6 months that I was there was that I was different. Something was different between he and his friends, and he got scared toward the end. Understandably so, all right. And I told him after I told him that night of the visit, I said, I really can't stay. The visiting hours are almost over, and I knew that they wouldn't kick me out. But I said that I didn't want to stay. I was tired of it. Okay, I understand how preaching, ministering in a dark environment is. I was tired of it, but he wanted me to stay. He was desperate. He had a surgery the next day. Okay, it was minor surgery compared to what eventually killed him. Okay, and I knew he was going to be okay, but he didn't. He wanted the peace that I had, and that's what I told him. I said, wait a minute. About 5 minutes into the visit, I'm trying to bow out. I said, you want what I have, is that it? And he said, yeah, okay. Now, what happens is he had faith in Christ. Okay, I believe he was saved before I got there. He saw Jesus as his solution, okay, to not just the problem of going to hell or heaven, but the problem of being so scared, of being the solution. Okay, so I witnessed to him. By the end of the night, okay, I believe he was saved before, but by the end of the night, he was definitely saved. I saw him 3 days later, and he was happy. Okay, he was a week then from dying, and he knew it. And I saw him 3 days later, and he was happy. He was at peace. He said, "Me and Jesus, we're okay." He couldn't stop saying Jesus, Jesus this and Jesus that. I was practically in tears of joy. I looked at his mom, who I believed was a Christian. She smiled and she nodded. Okay, the only reason that happened, the only reason that he could see the difference in me and him, was because it was a dark environment, and my light shined brightly. Not to brag on myself, but the light shined brightly. That's what I'm talking about when I say light shows up better in a dark room than it does in a light room. I'm not saying let's bring sin into our churches. Okay, now people who are sinful do come to church and have a place in church, and I want them there. I want the most sinful people there. But I'm not trying to turn it into a concert where everybody's getting high and their sin abounds. It needs to be a place that is reverent. It needs to be a place where people like me are there. Okay, where a person who is not saved can feel like he's getting close. But at the same time, I feel that our ministry has to extend beyond the church. And I know I'm right about that. I know I'm right. Have a good day.